What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of V4 ReZero Season 2. This is episode 17. With me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
This episode was it was long for one thing. It's like we got another 30-minute long episode, without like any proper opening or ending song or anything like that, or ending credits.
Yeah,
scene or
we do
like
get
that,
the new ending song, but we don't get any the proper ending with the visuals and everything. It's just kind of it just kind of plays while the show is going on, which isn't really surprising.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of figured this episode would not really have the new opening, but at least we got the new ending. But I think we're still going to be waiting a while for until we actually get the new opening with the new opening animation, though.
I wouldn't be surprised if they never even put it in here at all.
Yeah, there's still like so much to go through, so I definitely, my prediction is it still won't be in the next episode, because there's still there's a lot to go through with that one too. So
just the overall length of these episodes are so long. It's just that they don't. Yeah, it's like they never even bother. I don't mind it. It's just like they just don't bother even place the opening and closing visuals in there, because for one thing, each of them take up a minute and a half each, and both of them together would take up at least 3 minutes of an episode.
I do prefer them doing it this way, though, because it's just the so that they can actually adapt most of what was in the source material. It's like, and it's also just because, of course, the episode is longer, so they can cover as much as possible. I just kind of wish that it's obvious that the studio is passionate about trying to be as faithful as possible to the source material. I just kind of wish other shows for instance Index would do something like this, where they actually try to faithfully adapt the source material and not rush everything like they did.
Yeah, so far this episode, it was long, but I don't think there was anything crazy. From what I could tell.
It's majority of it, of course, is Amelia's backstory, which a lot of people have, of course, been curious about for a while.
Most of the time, the story in this episode was self-contained. It's we pretty much get to see Amelia walking alongside Echidna, talking to each other about just talking about Amelia's past, and then of course eventually we see them going to where Amelia used to live, which is of course I think she's living with Fortuna. I think, from what we find out, that we know she calls herself Mother Fortuna, but technically she's not Amelia's mother. She's actually, what was it? Was it the mother's sister, or was it the father's sister? I can't.
I think it's the father's sister, because I think it was confirmed the mother is not an elf. The mother is human, so the father must be the elf. Yeah, because that's, well, I also heard that what was it? That Fortuna is also a half elf or something like that. I don't. Yeah, I'm not too sure about that.
Yeah, but it just shows us what Amelia used to be like when she was a kid. She would often sneak out of the whatever it is that house she lives in. Yeah, and she's also communicating with these fairy sprites that follow her around or just guide her at times. And then she would she would oftentimes sneak out of the house, and then she would see Fortuna meeting with what we see is a younger, not as crazy version of Betelgeuse from way back then, I guess.
Betelgeuse before he became, before he lost his mind, which, his name is just, in this is just Geese. Or Juice.
Juice, whatever.
Juice. Well, technically, I guess Juice. They call him Juice.
Yeah, Yeah, assuming that's how it's.
That's how they were pronouncing
well,
it,
based on like
so,
how she's pronouncing
yeah.
it. Yeah, it's just Juice is like apparently he has like a pretty friendly relationship with Fortuna. Just having him and his and other. I would say they almost
they're
look
kind
like
of
witch
dressed
cult
like
members,
the,
but
the witch cultists. I think
Yeah.
technically they are in the witch cult because I think they're going to reveal that later, but so I'm not. It is a little bit confusing because of course, as we know, the witch cult is they're not very nice. So it's kind of weird to see these guys who are dressed in the same clothes as the witch cult, and they're just kind of giving. It seems like they're giving supplies to the village, helping them out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they pretty much come back on a regular basis, and then most of the time we just see them just visiting them on a couple of occasions, and then at one point later in the episode,
also there's another reason why they're visiting is because every time they visit, Juice asks Fortuna about the seal, how the seal is doing. So he's basically going there to check on the status of the seal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, Amelia eavesdrops on the conversation. So she eventually finds a big door in the middle of a snowy field with a huge lock on it. However, at this time, she can't unlock it or do anything with it. So she eventually tries walking back to the village, and then she eventually runs into Juice later. Then of course Juice has has a reaction upon meeting her for the first time. He cries I guess out of joy
even when reading this, I was a little bit. Maybe he's just a very emotional person, but I don't know why he has such an emotional reaction to seeing Amelia.
I can point out to him his obsession with
Love.
the witch, or
yeah,
I don't know. It has maybe something related to that one. Of his obsession back when we saw him in season 1. It's I could point it out to that one, but it's still not really explained in this episode either. But eventually they eventually have a friendly relationship alongside Fortuna, and then
I do think there was a little
course,
bit of part that was kind of cut here is because there is a scene I think afterwards where Fortuna I think does kind of scold Amelia for sneaking out and eavesdropping and all that, because of course she finds out because of her befriending Juice. But instead they just kind of cut that part out and cut to the which I think is the next scene where they're just kind of playing around. I don't think it was an entirely necessary scene. They could didn't really need to include it, but I guess we could have assumed that she wouldn't have been happy if she found out about that.
Yeah, and of course they eventually find out that Amelia's been hanging out with I guess what Juice reveals as being the lesser spirits.
I also in the episode there was they do briefly cut back to Subaru and the others, that Subaru is still depressed or depressed because
no, he's not depressed. He's more or less embarrassed.
Yeah, true. Embarrassed because of Garfield coming across his script or his drawings and the writings on the walls, he kind of then we see Rem come up, of course, and the two Ryuzu clones. And Ram says that they, I think it was Shima, has something to talk to them about, and I don't remember if they say it or not, but I'll just go ahead and say it. It's it has to do with the past of the sanctuary, and specifically, it regards the original Ryuzu mayor. So yeah, that's what that's what we can expect. The next episodes are going to start talking about that. So it's going to be basically another flashback scene. It probably is going to cut in between that flashback scene and also Amelia's trial of the past. So basically, two flashback scenes happening. but yeah, that's basically what all we really get from Subaru and the rest of them in this episode.
Yeah. Well, back to that scene where we're talking about it's like I said, it's like they like Amelia, Fortuna, and Juice all we're having a nice friendly conversation, and talking about how they'll keep seeing each other on a more frequent basis. Like that pretty much where the episode's about to end.
I think we should point out because Fortuna also tells Amelia that promises are important and they should be kept, and I think this kind of is a little bit important because it seems to have because as we know, Amelia does take promises really seriously. So I think that's where she got that from.
Yeah. And then of course, we never find out why she kind of berates Fortuna as of right now, because she broke her promise, whatever it is she broke her promise on, I guess. But
also, of course, we get kind of I think a scene too where I think it was Amelia makes fun of them and saying that Geese and Fortuna are mother and father or something, and they kind of get embarrassed. So I think it's pretty obvious there's maybe some romantic implications there, but it kind of makes Geese, both of these characters, especially what happens to Juice, much more tragic too. Just because he seems like a normal guy, and he's he gets along with Amelia pretty well, but it's gonna change pretty soon.
And of course, by the end of this episode, we see Regulus Cornelius make an appearance by the end of this episode, which this is the second time he's actually made an appearance, but this is 100 years prior to this, so I'm just curious of what he's doing there. However, the episode just cuts off before we really find out as to why.
Obviously, once he shows up, he immediately kind of goes into his spiel, how he did in the first episode of the season, about how you're trampling on my rights as a person and all this other stuff. And it obviously seems like it pretty much immediately gets hostile. So you can kind of expect what's going to happen afterwards. I mean, it'll probably play out the same way as what happened in the first episode, when he decides to just destroy everything, try to kill everybody. So it's probably going to play out the same way. But of course, not too much of a spoiler, but they probably, if they're following the novels, they won't be going back to this for a while, and they'll be showing Ryuzu's past. So yeah, they'll probably they'll go back to it either maybe at some point in the next episode, although I will say the majority of the episode will probably be Ryuzu's past, but so either there or in the episode after that. I thought this was a really good episode. It wasn't really an action heavy episode or anything like that. There wasn't really any fight scenes. It was mostly just kind of expanding on Emilia's backstory. I guess for anime only watchers, they're probably shocked to see Juice show up, and he, that just the fact that he used to be a pretty normal guy before he turned into, of course, the crazy, as we know him. So it just kind of makes that scene much more tragic because of, as he used to just be, like I said, this normal person, and he just turned into a madman. And also I kind of liked the banter that we got between, I guess, Echidna and Amelia. Echidna is constantly kind of trying to I guess just she obviously doesn't like Amelia, but Amelia just sort of takes it in stride and doesn't really seem to be that bothered by it.
No, I mean, I'm just curious as why Echidna harbors that kind of grudge against Amelia. Maybe, I don't know if it has to do with her, with Amelia being related to the witch.
It's
by any chance.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, at first I thought it. I mean, it's possible it also might just have to do something with her. I guess being potentially jealous because, you know, obviously Subaru has affection for Emilia, not so much for her. But it also could maybe be because Echidna knows something about something else about Emilia that maybe Emilia herself doesn't know. So it could be that too.
Yeah. I mean, well, overall, this episode, it was an okay episode. It wasn't as crazy as, like, you know, all the other episodes we've watched for the last several weeks. It was more self-contained, if anything.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we do get like that, that high, almost high tension like moment by the end of this episode with Regulus making an appearance. But, you know, we can't be sure whether or not if they're going to go back to it or if they're just going to have like a transition back to Ryuzu instead.
Yeah, I will say it's going to be more or less the same in the next episode when they go into Ryuzu's backstory. There is some crazy stuff that of course happens at the end of it, but I'm not exactly sure how far they're going to get in the next episode. So if it's going to be as long as this episode, they could get to it. So if that's the case, then yeah, we might see some interesting things happen there. But yeah, there will be some other characters that show up when they go into Ryuzu's backstory that I will say we will be surprised to see. So we get to learn a little bit more about those particular characters that some things we might not have known about before. But yeah, I thought this was a pretty decent episode. I mean, I liked when I read it in the novel that we actually got to know about, you know, more about Emilia. And there was I remember when I first watched The Frozen Bond and I saw we briefly saw Geese and Fortuna. And I also, when I saw them on the cover of that volume when it came out in Japan, I was really curious as to who those people were, because of course at the time I didn't really know. I assumed, of course, that the guy with the green hair was obviously Geese. But at least now we finally get more information on like what happened with them and Emilia in the past, and why, you know, Emilia is even with Geese in the first place, or even knows who he is.
Yeah, yes, because I mean I do remember like when we first saw The Frozen Bond, I acknowledged that anime adaptation of the storyline was incomplete because they did cut off a lot of, you know, points of the story until, like, you know, parts of the second season started, I guess, completing that part of the storyline, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they do kind of go more into it with Roswaal showing up and giving Emilia the what was it, the crest, or the royal crest, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I mean, they don't like show all the scenes they cut out, but they show at least that one scene. So it's sort of like, in a way, you know, bridges the gap a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's like I thought it was okay that they released like the way they released like that OVA. I mean, even though like it wasn't fully complete, I guess they just only did that just to hype up season 2, or just give us hints of, like, you know, what we might have expected up to this point.
Yeah,
of the
probably a little
storyline.
bit of both. But yeah, so I thought this was a good episode. I'm pretty excited for next week's. I mean, as someone who's already read ahead in the novels, I know what to expect, but it'll be interesting to finally see it animated.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, in how they're gonna end up adapting the next parts of the storyline, because it just seems like I don't know, it'd be a bit of a letdown if they like cut off at this point of the storyline and, you know, transition to Ryuzu instead, because it just like
the anime could handle it
I don't know,
differently. But
maybe.
I mean, I kind of expect it, because I mean, so far they have been pretty accurate to the light novels, so I kind of expect it to more or less do the same thing as the light novels. But I mean, who knows? They could do their own thing with it, which I wouldn't really mind if they just you know, decided to basically adapt all of Emilia, or, you know, do all of Emilia's Trial of the Past before they decide to get into Ryuzu's past. But like I said, I think that's honestly a little bit unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm just curious, like, you know, if I mean, personally, I think it might be it might end up being a pacing issue if they completely cut away from that, the ending of this episode to transitioning to, like you said, reuse the storyline and then just go on from there. Because I'm not sure how long that's they will adapt that part of the storyline.
It's not as long as Amelia's, I don't think so. But yeah, like I said, I thought this was a decent episode overall. I mean, it gave us a lot more about Amelia as a character, which a lot of people were probably curious about. So it kind of at least expands on her and her past. But yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about it. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, I'm curious on how they're gonna handle the next episode after this, because I'm just if they're gonna end up transitioning to Ryuzu, if the next episode's gonna be more Ryuzu focused instead of transitioning back to
it's
the end of this storyline. I'm not
just
really
cut
sure.
in between the two.
Maybe.
But yeah, so that all being said, I guess until next Wednesday, we will see you all next time.